Every high street had one, a man in a brown coat behind a slope of wooden boxes who could pick you a perfect melon without appearing to look at it. He never squeezed. He never guessed. He carried 15 tests in his hands, learned from his father, and he ran them in under 2 seconds flat. Then the supermarkets arrived, wrapped everything in cellophane, and told us to trust the label instead. These are the 15 tricks those men used, and number 1 still beats every barcode in Britain. Let's begin at 15. Number 15. The heft test. The first thing a proper greengrocer did with an orange was refuse to look at it. He took 2 of roughly the same size, 1 in each hand, and simply weighed them against each other, wrist rising and falling like a set of brass scales. The heavier one went into the bag. The lighter one went back on the pile for somebody who didn't know better. It looked like a party trick. It was physics. Juice is water, and water is heavy. A citrus fruit that has been sitting in a warehouse or on a lorry has been quietly losing moisture through its skin for weeks, and the flesh inside dries into pith and air. 2 oranges of identical size can differ by 1/5 in weight, and that 1/5 is the entire difference between a fruit that runs down your chin and one that tastes of wet cardboard. In 1954, oranges sold at around £1 a pound, and nobody paid £1 for air. The same test worked on lemons, grapefruit, and even on the tight little Jaffa satsumas that arrived at Christmas packed in blue tissue paper. Children were taught the game at the barrow, 2 fruits, guess which is fuller, and the greengrocer would grin when they got it right. Today we buy citrus in a mesh sack of 5, sight unseen, weight unconsidered. The scales in your own 2 hands are more accurate than any label, and they were free. Number 14. Read the stalk, not the fruit. Cherries and grapes are professional liars. The fruit itself is waxed, coloured and swollen, and it will look magnificent for a fortnight after it has stopped being worth eating. So the greengrocer never looked at the cherry. He looked at the stalk. A green, springy, slightly damp stem meant the fruit had come off the tree within days. A stalk gone brown, dry and brittle meant weeks in a chill room, and every one of those weeks had been drawn out of the fruit and into the stem. The same rule governed grapes. He would take the bunch by the top of the woody stalk and hold it level, and if the stem was pliable and pale green, the bunch was fresh. If it was brown and woody, and if a few grapes rained onto the boards when he gave it the gentlest shake, it went to the back for the jam makers. That shake was the whole test, and it took half a second. Grapes were a luxury in the 1950s, at £2 a pound and often reserved for the sick, brought to bedsides wrapped in a paper twist. Nobody carried a bad bunch to a sick relative. The knowledge was passed across the counter with the bag. Today, a supermarket punnet arrives sealed in a bag that hides the stem entirely, which is precisely the point. You cannot read the stalk through plastic, and they would rather you didn't. Number 13. Never rub off the bloom. There is a dusty grey-white haze on a good plum, a hazy fog on a black grape, a chalky powder on a blueberry, and for 3 generations, British shoppers have been rubbing it off on their sleeves to make the fruit shine. Every greengrocer in the country winced when they did it. That haze is called the bloom, and it is not dirt, not spray, not a sign of a dirty box. It is a natural wax the plant secretes to seal moisture inside the skin and keep bacteria out. It is, in effect, the fruit's own cellophane, and it is far better than ours. An intact bloom told the greengrocer 2 things at once. First, the fruit was properly fresh, because the bloom rubs away with handling, and a plum that has passed through 6 pairs of hands will have lost it in patches. Second, the fruit would keep for days longer in the bowl. Damsons for the Victoria plum jam, greengages in September, Fenland gooseberries in a paper bag at 4p a pound. The bloom was the seal of quality, and a barrow boy who polished his plums was a barrow boy trying to sell you something. He knew the shine looked lovely, and he knew the shine meant the clock was already running. Modern displays are lit and misted to make everything glossy, and shoppers now assume a matte plum is a dusty plum. It is exactly the reverse. Buy the dull one. Buy the one that looks like it has been breathed on. Number 12. Turn the punnet over. The most honest part of a punnet of strawberries is the bit facing the table. Greengrocers knew it, And so did any nan worth the name, which is why she would lift the punnet clean off the display and look at its underside before she looked at a single berry. The top layer is the shop window, the biggest, reddest fruit, arranged by hand, hulls pointing outward. The bottom is the truth. If the cardboard was stained crimson, if the paper had gone translucent and damp, then somewhere in that punnet a berry had collapsed, and mould spreads through a punnet of strawberries with startling speed once one gives way. She would put it back, silently, and take the one with a dry, pale base. She also learned to look at the collar of green leaves at the top of each berry. On a properly ripe strawberry, the little leaves sit up and away from the shoulder, almost lifting off, and the white ring beneath them has gone red. On a strawberry picked hard for travel, the leaves lie flat and clamped against the fruit like a cap. British strawberries were a fortnight of the year in the 1950s. Cambridgeshire fruit sold from Wednesday to Saturday, and you did not waste 1 9 on a punnet with a wet bottom. Today the punnets are sealed in film and stacked 4 deep, and turning one over is somehow seen as rude. Do it anyway. It has never once been wrong. Number 11. Trust the ugly apple. The most badly behaved thing a British greengrocer could do was tell you the truth about apples, which is that the beautiful ones are usually the worst. He would reach past the flawless waxed golden delicious and pull out a Cox's orange pippin with a rough, sandy brown patch spreading from the stalk like scuffed suede, and he would say that one. That patch is russeting, a natural corking of the skin, and on a Cox or an Egremont russet it is not a blemish at all. It tends to arrive on fruit that has had a long, slow, sunny finish on the tree, which is precisely the fruit that has built up the most sugar. The second half of the test lived in the stalk cavity. He would put his nose to the little well where the stem meets the fruit and breathe in, because that dimple concentrates the aromatics, and a Cox in October smells of pear drops and honey there, while a cold-stored apple in March smells of absolutely nothing. Finally, the stalk itself. Present and firm meant the apple had been picked with a proper twist. Missing meant it had been pulled, and a torn crown lets in rot. Britain grew over 2,000 apple varieties, and Covent Garden handled dozens in a single autumn week. We now stock about 6, sorted by appearance, and we have trained an entire nation to buy the pretty one and be disappointed. The russeted, dull, slightly odd-looking apple in the corner of the box is the one the man in the brown coat would have taken home himself. Number 10. The pear neck. Nothing in the greengrocery trade caused more quiet frustration than pears, because a pear is ripe for roughly 1 afternoon and spends the rest of its life either wooden or brown. So the trade developed the single most elegant test on this list, and it survives in the professional world to this day. You do not squeeze the belly of a pear. Squeezing the belly bruises it, tells you nothing useful, and marks it for the next customer. You press very gently with your thumb at the narrow neck just beneath the stalk. That shoulder is the last part of a pear to soften, so if it yields, barely, a millimetre, the give of a shoulder rather than a cheek, the flesh below it is perfect right now. If the neck is hard, the pear needs 2 days in the fruit bowl. If the neck is soft, the middle has already gone to mush and grit. A conference in October, a Commis at Christmas wrapped in purple tissue in a wooden crate, a Williams for bottling in Kilner jars. Each behaved differently, and the neck test worked on all of them. Greengrocers ripened pears deliberately, keeping a tray behind the counter, and would ask you straight out whether you wanted them for today or Thursday, then hand you different fruit accordingly. Nobody asks you that now. The supermarket sells 1 pear at 1 stage of hardness and leaves you to work it out. The neck press takes a second, and it has never failed anybody who learned it. Number 9. The banana crown and the paper bag. Bananas came back to Britain in 1945 after 5 years of absence, and the nation went briefly mad for them, which meant every greengrocer learned to manage them like a nurse manages a ward. The first trick was the crown, the thick stem where the fingers join the hand. If it was green and firm, that bunch had days of life in it, whatever colour the skins were. If the crown had gone black and slimy, the fruit would be brown by Tuesday regardless. The second trick was the paper bag, and it was pure chemistry decades before anyone in Britain could name it. A ripening banana releases ethylene gas, which is the plant's own ripening hormone. and a paper bag traps that gas around the fruit while still letting moisture escape. Put a hard green avocado or a rock-solid peach in a bag with one banana and it would be ready in a day. Leave the bananas loose on the windowsill and they slowed right down. Every nan in Britain knew, without being able to explain it, that the fruit bowl was a chemical reactor and that a banana sitting next to the apples would age the entire bowl in a weekend. She also knew to break the bunch into singles and to hang them rather than lay them down, because a banana resting on its side bruises under its own weight. 9 pence for a pound in 1956 and treated like treasure. Now we buy them shrink-wrapped in 5s, store them beside the apples and complain that they go off. Number 8. The pineapple test that was never the leaf. Ask anyone in Britain how you tell if a pineapple is ripe and they will tell you to pull a leaf from the crown. Ask a greengrocer of the old school and he would tell you that trick is half right and mostly useless because a leaf will pull free from a tired, dried-out pineapple just as easily as from a perfect one. What he did instead was turn the thing upside down and smell the base. A pineapple ripens from the bottom up, and the flat plate at the bottom where it was cut from the plant is where the sugars gather. If that base smells sweet, floral and faintly of rum, the fruit is ready all the way through. If it smells sour or fermented, it has gone over. If it smells of nothing at all, it was cut green and it will never, ever improve, because pineapples contain no starch reserve to convert. That is the cruel part. Unlike a banana or a pear, a pineapple picked early is permanently unripe. He would also press the eyes, the diamond scales, looking for a slight give and a golden blush spreading up from the bottom, and he would take the heavy one because heft means juice here as it does with citrus. Pineapples were extraordinary luxuries, arriving by ship, sold whole for 5 shillings and displayed on the top shelf like a trophy. You did not gamble 5 shillings on a leaf. You turned it over and you used your nose. Number 7. Ask what came in this morning. This one was not a test of fruit at all. It was a test of the shop, and it was the most powerful trick on the entire barrow. The old greengrocer bought at market at 4 in the morning. Covent Garden, Smithfield's neighbours, the wholesale halls of every city in Britain. And he came back with whatever had been good and cheap that day, not with a list dictated by a buyer in a head office. So the correct question was never, "Have you got strawberries?" It was, "What came in this morning?" And he would tell you, honestly, because he wanted you back on Friday. He would say the Kent cherries were a waste of your money this week, but the Evesham plums were the best he had seen all year, and he would sell you plums. The whole rhythm of British eating was built on that question. Nobody expected raspberries in February. You ate what had arrived, and it was better, and it was cheaper, and it tasted of the month you were standing in. Oral histories from market towns recall women planning the week's pudding on the way home, having changed their minds at the counter. The supermarket destroyed this exchange completely, and quite deliberately. Everything is available, all year, always, and therefore nothing is ever particularly good. There is no one to ask. Even now, in a farm shop or on a market stall, that question works instantly and marks you as somebody who knows. The best fruit in the shop is whatever the man behind the counter is excited about. Number 6. Never take from the front. Every greengrocer in Britain built his display the same way, and he was not ashamed of it. The freshest fruit went at the back and underneath. The oldest went at the front, at eye height, turned so its best cheek faced the street. This was called rotation, and it was not dishonesty. It was the only way to sell perishable stock without throwing half of it in the bin. And the fruit at the front was perfectly good, just older. But it meant the knowing customer reached past it. She would take the apples from the second row back, lift the top layer of the plum tray and take from beneath. Ask him to fetch a lettuce from the box out the back, rather than the one drying under the awning. And he would do it, without complaint, because she had proved she knew the game and he respected her for it. Fruit at the front of a display has also had a day of being handled, breathed on, and warmed by the sun through the window, and warmth is what kills soft fruit. The very same logic governs a supermarket today, only now it is done by machine logic and stack date, and the newest stock is genuinely at the back of the chiller because a computer told a colleague to put it there. Reaching to the back of the shelf is not fussiness. It is the oldest shopping trick in Britain, and it still buys you 2 extra days of life for the same money. Number 5. The shoulders, never the belly. Watch a shopper approach a peach today and you will see the same crime committed every time. Thumb straight into the cheek, a firm press, a small frown, and the peach put back with a bruise that will be brown by tomorrow. The old greengrocers hated it so much that many kept a sign up, "Please do not squeeze the fruit." Their own method touched the fruit exactly once. You cradle the peach or the nectarine in your whole palm, and you feel with your fingers at the shoulders, the ridge of flesh either side of the stalk. That is the last part to soften, so give their means ripe throughout, and using the flat of your fingers rather than a thumb tip spreads the pressure so widely that you cannot bruise it. Then, while it is in your hand, you look for the wrinkle. A properly ripe stone fruit develops the faintest crinkling of skin right around the stalk well, because the flesh beneath has begun to give up water, and once you have seen it, you cannot unsee it. Color is worthless here, by the way. The red blush on a nectarine is a variety trait, not a ripeness signal. The background color matters far more, and it should have shifted from green to cream or gold. Peaches were a rare, glorious thing in post-war Britain, tinned far more often than fresh, and a fresh one at sixpence was worth handling properly. Cradle, shoulders, wrinkle. One touch, no damage, no disappointment. Number 4. Find the field spot. Here is the entry that separates the amateurs from the trade. Every watermelon has a pale patch on one side where it sat on the soil and no sunlight reached it. This is the field spot, and it is the single most reliable ripeness indicator on any fruit sold in Britain. And almost nobody under 50 knows it exists because supermarkets display melons on their sides, spot hidden, and stack them so you cannot turn them. Roll the melon over. If that patch is white, greenish, or barely there, the melon was cut early and shipped hard, and it will be pale, crunchy, and faintly of cucumber. If the patch is a deep, buttery, creamy yellow, that melon sat on the ground and ripened until it was ready. The yellower the better. Nobody has ever regretted taking the yellowest field spot on the stack. There is a second signal on the same fruit that the trade called sugar scars or webbing, those rough, corky brown lines that look like scratches on the rind. Shoppers avoid them, thinking damage. They are scar tissue from where sugar seeped out through pollination points, and the more webbing a melon has, the sweeter it is. So the ugliest melon on the pile, with the scarred rind and the great yellow belly, is the correct one, and it will cost you the same as the flawless pale one your neighbor is carrying to the till. Turn the melon over. It takes 2 seconds. Number 3. Listen to it. The image is fixed in the national memory. A man in a brown coat, cigarette behind his ear, holding a melon up beside his head and thumping it with the heel of his hand. It looked like theatre for the customers. It was acoustics. A watermelon is over 90% water held in cells, and as it ripens, those cell walls break down, the flesh loosens, and the whole fruit becomes a better drum. A green melon returns a high, tight, dead tap, the sound of a packed, solid thing. A ripe one returns a deep, hollow, resonant note, low enough that you feel it as much as hear it. An overripe one thuds dully because the flesh inside has gone woolly. But the real professionals did something cleverer still. They held the melon flat against one open palm and struck it with the other, so they could feel the vibration traveling through the fruit and into their hand. A ripe melon shivers. You can genuinely feel the wobble of loosened flesh transmitting through the rind. And there was a last resort for the truly suspicious, a firm shake beside the ear. If you heard anything move, a faint slosh, a soft internal shift, the melon had gone over and separated inside. Tap, listen, feel, and only then buy. Nobody laughed at the old boy thumping melons in 1958 because he was right every single time, and the whole street knew it. Number 2. Warm it first. This is the trick that explains why fruit tasted better before we all owned fridges, and it is the one that makes people angry when they realize. Cold fruit cannot smell. The aroma of a strawberry, a peach, a melon is carried by volatile compounds, and volatile means exactly what it sounds like. They need warmth to lift off the surface and reach your nose. Below about 10 degrees, they simply stay put. So a perfect, fragrant peach straight out of a chill cabinet smells of nothing whatsoever, and a shopper sniffing it concludes it is tasteless and puts it back. The old greengrocer's fruit sat on a wooden slope at the temperature of the street, and it filled the pavement with smell so thick you could find the shop with your eyes shut. That smell was the advertisement, and it was honest. His trick, when a customer was unsure, was to close her hand around the fruit for a moment, blood heat 20 or 30 seconds no more, and then have her smell it. The scent bloomed. It works today in any supermarket in Britain, and it is the closest thing to a superpower on this list. It also explains the deeper crime. Refrigeration below about 8 degrees permanently destroys the flavor compounds in peaches, nectarines and tomatoes, and they never recover, not on your windowsill, not ever. We chilled our fruit to make it last and quietly threw the taste away. Number 1. Smell it where it grew. Every trick on this list, the heft, the stalk, the drum, the field spot, was really just a way of getting to the same place, and the greengrocers knew it. In the end, there was only one test, and it took a single second. You turn the fruit over and you smell the blossom end, not the stalk end, where it hung from the plant. The opposite pole, the little dimple or scar at the bottom, where the flower once was. That is where the fruit ripens from. That is where the aromatics gather. And that is where it will tell you the truth before your eyes have had a chance to be fooled by wax and lighting and a red sticker. A cantaloupe that smells of honey and musk at the blossom end is ready to eat this afternoon. One that smells green will never be sweet. A tomato held to the nose at the base should smell of the vine. A pineapple at the base should smell of rum. An orange, warmed and scratched at the navel, should smell of orange so violently that you want to eat the skin. If it smells of nothing, put it down. It is not shy, it is not sleeping, it is not going to improve on your windowsill. It is simply not fruit yet, and it never will be. Everything else on this list is a shortcut for people in a hurry. The nose is the whole trade, and it is the reason the man in the brown coat never seemed to look at the melon at all. He wasn't looking, he was breathing. 15 tricks, and not one of them needs a label, an app, or a sticker. Try one this week. Turn a melon over, warm a peach in your hand, flip the punnet, and tell me in the comments if the old boy in the brown coat was right, because he was.